HelloFresh.com/Colin Holly Sounders joining me. Nice to be back. So, you know how I feel about this. I like my president to be presidential, my quarterbacks to be quarterbackial. I don't want Cam Newton looking like a high school wide receiver on the sideline pouting during games. I don't want Jay Cutler over there handing his jersey off by himself, rushing to the bench. Come on, grow up. You're the CEO of the franchise. When that game starts, you're the coach on the field. You're the quarterback. It's why I loved Andrew Luck the first day he walked in the league. It's why I liked Russell Wilson the first day he walked in the league. They were the grown-ups in the room. So the Vikings, according to one report, are going to offer Kirk Cousins $91 million. I'll believe it when I see it. I don't believe it to be true. I don't think anybody's going to give him $30 million a year. I don't think he's worth it. I think he's a solid quarterback. I'd pay him 20, 21 max. But Kirk Cousins, and I like the guy. I mean, he was a starting quarterback in the NFL. He got into D.C. He was a fourth-round pick. He overcame that, and he beat out RG3. Like, there's a lot to be said. This guy got to the playoffs one year. Okay, he's better than this. Next week, he puts on Twitter yesterday. Next week is now officially the first time since 2007 I'll be choosing where to play football. I'm open to suggestions. This has a Tara Reid, Lindsay Lohan feel to it. I'm single. Valentine's is coming up. Slide into my DMs. All right. Make a pitch. Dude, you are going to make $75 million. You are a franchise quarterback. Okay, Cam Newton, I'm over when he's pouting on the sidelines. Jay Cutler, I clobber when he puts his hands into his gear and mopes. You're better than this. Okay, you are an NFL franchise quarterback, hottest guy in the market, multiple teams vying, and you just went, I'm single, it's Valentine's, anybody interested? Remember the famous quote by Kirk Cousins? Remember that one? You do. You like that? You like that? No, I don't like that. I don't like it at all. Part of being quarterback is being a grown-up. Don't be desperate. Don't be Lindsay Lohan. Don't be Tara Reid. Don't tell me you're single. Anybody interested? Make calls. Take care of business. Have your agent do the work. Sit quietly. There'll be multiple offers. Ponder which one's the best. I would certainly recommend a team that has a good defense. I don't think you're a quarterback that can win shootout after shootout. I think you're a quarterback that when he has good protection and a star on the perimeter can win a bunch of football games. I think you're better than Case Keenum. Not a ton better, but you're better. I think you're slightly worse than Alex Smith, and I think he's pretty solid. But internet, I'm available. Slide into my DMs. Not having it on this show. You like that? I don't like that. I don't like it at all. Hollywood News.
No. Turn on the news. This is the Herd Line News.
Quickly here, where did you hear slide into my DMs? Do you have a lot of girls hitting you up that way?
But I've heard the young peeps out there. That's like you get in trouble when people slide into your DM stands for direct message. So that's if you're following somebody on Twitter and they're following you and you go into it and the public can't see it and you're like, hey, what's happening? You don't do that. That's nothing but trouble.
And you only know that from listening to rap songs,
I know that because it's kind of the current culture we talk about and people get in trouble and it's bad news.
I love that you know that. All right, everybody. James Harden wants the Rockets to keep riding the wave. The Rockets trounced the Thunder 122-112 for their 16th straight victory last night. They still have the best record in the NBA ahead of the Warriors. So after the game, Harden talked about what makes them so good. He opened up about it. Check it out.
We're so good offensively that every single night, teams are going to just throw different coverages at us. We just got to figure out ways to, attack them. Tonight was no different. So once we found something that we can go into, we used it. Guys got open shots, and we just rode that wave out the entire game.
He's really good. Like, he's separate. He and Westbrook are both great players. To me, Harden has separated over the last couple years from Westbrook. Is that Harden used to be a little more ball-centric and selfish. Something clicked with him, not exactly what it was. Daryl Morey, maybe the GM came to him and said, dude, here are the analytics. Shoot a little bit less, be a little bit more of a passer, play a little better defense, and we'll win more games. But I used to see Harden and Westbrook as kind of the same guy. Great scores, major difficulty on the defensive end, not great to play with. In the last 2 to 3 years, Harden has become Like, to me, if he wins MVP, generally I argue it's always LeBron. But if he wins MVP and you could argue he should have won it last year, I'm like, I get it. Like, he has really become an incredibly aware, knows exactly what he's doing on every possession, always in complete control player. Westbrook's talented, but I feel a lot of the times he goes down the court with no idea what he's doing, and he's out of control, and whatever his athletic ability grants him, he gets. But that game last night, it felt like two quarterbacks, one totally on every possession, knew what he was doing.
But are you convinced the Rockets are legit?
Oh, no, they're legit. I just don't think they'll beat. Listen, you can be legit and not be able to beat Tom Brady. Okay. You can be legit Georgia, Oklahoma, and not be able to beat Alabama. Sure. They're legit. I just don't think they'll beat Golden State.
All right, on the other side of that game, the OKC Thunder continue to have their struggles. Colin, you mentioned the stressed marriage earlier off the top of the show. Westbrook was 15 for 27 for 32 points, but 0 for 4 from three-point land. However, despite the loss, Westbrook just wants his team to stay positive. Look at this.
Stay positive, man. You got to, a lot of games left, a lot of nights left to play basketball, go out and compete, and that's what we got to do.
Best dressed guy in the NBA since Michael Jordan. I'll grant him that.
But look at his body language. He wants him to stay positive. Do you think that he's really, Mr. Rogering this?
At some point, have you ever gone to therapy in your whole life?
One time.
Okay, I've gone to a lot of therapy. And not that it's pointless, but you do get to a point where even a good therapist will tell you, listen, it's hard. Even if you engage in this, change is hard for people. You have to be all in, wrap your arms around it, and even then it'll be difficult. Could we just admit now that Westbrook at his core is just a hard guy to play with? Allen Iverson was at his core. Kobe Bryant was at his core. And that you can coach him and teach him and give him several people. But Westbrook, to a flaw, is tunnel vision, and he'll win another MVP at some point. But this is kind of who he is.
All right, and finally, it's time for The Real Deal, brought to you by Carl's Jr. and Hardee's $5 All-Star Meals. And today, The Real Deal is Carolina Panthers Christian McCaffrey, and for a very good reason. McCaffrey was credited with saving a man's life yesterday while hiking in Castle Rock, Colorado. He was hiking with his brothers when he noticed another older hiker fall about 20 feet onto a rock, really hurt himself, suffered a broken neck, femur, ribs, all of it, Colin. Yeah, Christian leapt into action immediately, knew exactly what to do, called 911, and they helped stabilize the man. It speaks to the kind of guy that he is. He even went a little earlier today with his family to visit the man in the hospital.
Now, where was this at? What state was this at?
This is in Colorado, Castle Rock, Colorado. They were hiking.
Wow.
And, and the man is now in critical but stable condition, so really credits Christian for saving his life.
Wow.
Right.
That was a great story.
Mm-hmm. It is. Everybody had a big day yesterday. You got a word in the dictionary. Christian saved somebody's life.
I really
Very
did.
Equal.
Holly Saunders with
That's
the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie
If
News.
you think a train will stop if it sees your car on the tracks, it will a mile after it hits you. They can't stop. You need to. Brought to you by people who run trains, I think. It's funny. I was just watching Oklahoma City and Houston play last night, and I know that a lot of people think when you're a talk show host, I can come in and not make predictions. That's very easy. There's a lot of guys in my business that don't want to ever be wrong. I come in, I make NFL predictions, I make Final Four predictions, and one of the other things I do, because I think it's fun, is I project. I project this guy's going to be a bust, this guy's going to be good. Now, I know when I do that opens the door for me being wrong, but that's much more fun as a host. And I always found when I used to listen to radio and not be on the air that I liked hosts who took me to places and made me think. So with Russell Westbrook, you're anti-Russell Westbrook. No, what I figured out about 3 years ago watching him was everybody's falling in love with him. And I said, I'm not denying his talent, but I'm watching the body language of KD. And I'm watching the body language of James Harden years ago. And I'm like, it's not great. And I was also noticing this with Carmelo, Derrick Rose, and often Kobe Bryant. I'm not picking on Westbrook. I think the game has changed. You have to recruit other stars. You have to worry about spacing. It used to be 2 stars, 1 in this league. It doesn't anymore. You have to have a multitude of guys now that the Warriors have Clay and Steph and Draymond and KD and a great coach and a great system. I'm not anti-Westbrook. I am, however, over the last 3 years, trying to spot and project a trend. And when I watched him and Harden last night, I saw him as the same player largely 3 years ago. I think Harden has separated. I love watching Harden play. He comes down in control. He always has what I would call a plan. You watch James Harden come down. He looks at the floor. He looks at the spacing. He veers to the side. He's got a plan on every possession. That's what LeBron does. Westbrook sometimes does. A lot of times it's just going 100 miles an hour, and what happens, happens. And with that, oh, boy, you know, Nick Wright's going to disagree with me a lot today via the Coward Global Satellite Network. So, okay, there's two ways to go. First of all, you love Harden. I was a reluctant James Harden fan. I am now all in on him. I think he has really become a wonder. I don't even have a problem if he wins MVP over LeBron. I love watching him play. He's so smart. He manipulates refs, the floor, the tempo of opposition. Well, you and I have a disagreement on Westbrook, and I watched that game last night, and I've got to be honest. I was snickering. I was laughing. Yeah. You still love Westbrook. Now, eventually you'll come to your senses. Can you acknowledge this morning it was a good night for me?
Okay, well, I mean, sure, because you've totally abandoned all the James Harden slander from the last few years and acted as if it doesn't exist. Like, I heard your whole soliloquy, like, I'm a talk show host that likes to give predictions and totally ignore the ones I miss on, like James Harden being one of the 2 best players or 3 best players in the league. But that's neither here nor there. Let's talk about your guy, my guy, Russell Westbrook. My big beef with what I would call your hypercriticalness of Russ is there aren't 8 guys in the league you'd rather have. Like, I'll give you 7 at worst. LeBron, Harden, KD, Steph, Kawhi, Anthony Davis, and I'm leaving one obvious one out that'll come to me in a moment. But that's your full, Giannis Antetokounmpo. That's it. Like, who would you rather have, Russ or Damian Lillard? Russ. Who would you rather have, Russ or Klay Thompson? Russ. Who would you rather have, Russ or Kyrie Irving? Russ. So, like, he is not a perfect basketball player. And one thing that I do think you might have been ahead of the curve on, which is that Russ might be the best guy to get you to 45 wins with no talent around him. But is he the right guy to get you to 55 wins with some talent around him? This year is not a good argument that he is. This year is a much better argument for what you've been saying. But when you still can't list a dozen guys better than him in the league, I just feel like he's been unfairly maligned by my favorite talk show host in the world.
Okay, is it possible that this is out there, though? That he is listening. You know, players always say, Nick, you know this when you worked in Kansas City and Houston. Oh, we don't listen to media. And then when you see the guys in person, they give you that, stink eye. They're looking at you like, yeah, you're the guy who always bashes me. Yeah. Is it possible that the bad guys like me are kind of getting into Westbrook? He's either hearing it himself or from friends, the criticism, not just from me, but from others, because it does look like post-All-Star break, I'm not sure if this Thunder team's going to make the playoffs, Nick. Their last 10, 11 games are really tough. Is that fair?
Well, I mean, I'm not sure what the reason that the team's play has dipped, aside from the fact that they lost Andre Roberson. Now, the numbers for Andre Roberson on and off the court are drastic. He has the biggest on-off court differential of any player on the team. They are over 14 points per 100 possessions better with than without him. Their defense went from a top 5 defense pre his injury to a bottom 12 defense post his injury. But the reason that I don't think you can let the Thunder off the hook is he's their 5th best guy. You've got to be able to lose your 5th best guy. You've got to be able to lose the guy that everyone looked at as the weak link of your starting lineup and not have it fall apart. You were texting me, or what I would call text heckling me last night during the game. And you did, unfortunately, raise what I think is a fair point, which is 65 games in, Russ and Paul George don't seem to have a ton of chemistry. And that does fall on the best player, and the best player of those two is Russ. So I think some of your criticism has been proven out. Now, all of it being proven out, I think you're a couple weeks away from preferring Jeremy Lamb over Russell Westbrook. So like that, I won't go that far. But some of this, Russ not playing well with others, does appear to have at least a kernel of truth to it.
Now, my favorite point guard in the league forever has been Chris Paul. I'm not saying he's the most gifted, but he goes to the completely dysfunctional. Even the owner was dysfunctional or worse in Clipperland. So he's with the Pelicans. 1 year he makes him a 3 seed. He leaves, even with Anthony Davis haven't done squat. Goes to the completely embarrassing Clippers. They're a mess. And you know what? He didn't win as much as everybody else wanted, but they were won 3 different playoff series and were a viable team we talked about. He leaves, Blake Griffin's numbers down. DeAndre Jordan's numbers down. And Chris Paul has worked beautifully with James Harden. It's funny, but here's what's funny. He's a little bit the anti-Westbrook. Instead of like nonverbal and tunnel vision, Chris Paul's authentic, demanding, gruff, in your face. I love him. How much of the Houston credit is Harden and how much is Chris Paul?
Well, listen, none of this is possible without James Harden. He's going to win the MVP this year. He has an argument he should have won it over the person that did win it 2 of the last 3 years. He has an argument he should be going on 3 of 4 years winning the MVP. None of this happens without Harden and his offensive brilliance, a guy who is one of the 3 best isolation players in the history of the sport, if you look at the metrics, and a guy who basically gave the opening to Chris Paul coming there. But the difference between this team just being another really good Western Conference also-ran and a team that right now, and we can talk about this if you want, is the best team in the NBA, is Chris Paul coming there. Chris Paul has been spectacular. And all the people who say, oh, he's never made a Western Conference Finals, please go through the playoff log and tell me when Chris Paul was on the better team and they lost. Tell me when Chris Paul's team lost to a team they were better than. They were losing to 60-win Spurs teams. They were losing when they dealt with injuries. They were losing when his second-best player was David West. This whole idea that Chris Paul is some playoff choker, as if he didn't hit a runner in a Game 7 against the Spurs to win a series, is nonsense. This guy will go down as one of the 5 greatest point guards in the history of this great sport.
Love hearing that.
And now what you've got in Houston, Colin, I mean, just tell me, if you're building a modern NBA basketball team in 2018, here's what you want. You want shooting. Houston's got that in droves. You want rim protection. They've got that with Clint Capella. You want perimeter defense. They've got that with Trevor Ariza and Luke Richard and Bahamute. You want scoring off the bench. They've got that in 6th man of the year, Eric Gordon. You want elite point guard play as much as possible. They've got that for 48 minutes a night with Harden and Paul. And you want some toughness. Not Zaza Pachulia nonsense, but some real toughness. They've got that with Nene Hilario and PJ Tucker. My guy, Daryl Morey, deserves a ton of credit for how he has built this team. And unlike Golden State, which does have some but the perimeter scoring, but the age of some of their role players, there are no buts with Houston. Now, Golden State's overwhelming talent might overcome that, but this is a perfectly built 2018 basketball team. And, it's got the maybe unanimous MVP.
Yeah, I've really come to terms with Harden. I think he's just absolutely the great manipulator in the NBA. Refs to opponents to the floor. He's remarkable. Okay. Kirk Cousins yesterday went Lindsay Lohan. He went on Twitter and basically said, hello, I'm single. Anybody interested? Not quarterback eel. Vikings reportedly offered him $91 million. I'm sorry. That's a mistake. What is he worth? What do you make of $91 million for Kirk Cousins?
Listen, here is what I flatly would not do. I absolutely would not pay Kirk Cousins unless I was the Browns or the Jets and I could front load it dramatically. So he has like a $70 million cap hit in year 1 and then a reasonable one the rest of the way. I would not pay Kirk Cousins like a top 5 quarterback because here's what I know in the NFL, Colin. Look at the teams that have either been to or been close to a Super Bowl in, the last decade. Look at the Final 4 this year. It is either top 5 superstar quarterback or cheap quarterback. Either cheap quarterback because he's on his rookie deal or cheap quarterback because he's a journeyman. What we have not seen is the Joe Flacco model.
Water drink.
Pardon me. I had to pull on my Marco Rubio for a second. We hadn't seen the Joe Flacco model. It's why I'm skeptical of what Detroit's trying to do with Matt Stafford. What we have not seen is the top 12 to 15 quarterback paid like the top 5 quarterback. That team get to a Super Bowl. Why? Because then you can't put the pieces around him. Aaron Rodgers doesn't need the pieces around him. Tom Brady doesn't need the pieces around him, and that team will compete. But if you are going to have Blake Bortles as your quarterback, you better have an awesome other 52 guys. And the teams, we've seen it. How about Russell Wilson? He's on his rookie deal. He's not yet an elite quarterback. Because he's cheap, you can compete. When you pay this, quote, franchise quarterback the $30 million, and now you can't bring back your wide receivers, now your defense takes a hit, you know what you end up like? Matt Stafford's Detroit Lions. 8 or 9 wins every year, and you're screwed. So that's a long way of saying no. I wouldn't give him $30 million a year. Absolutely not.
By the way, it is a little chilly here in Los Angeles.
You're a son of a... You're such a bad person. I mean,
He censored himself.
You know what? I am going to... Enough's enough. I am revealing confidences right now. All this be damned. When I was offered this position in New York City, I don't know why, but I had a moment of, oh my God, like, what should I do? I was nervous. I had just gotten to Los Angeles. The whole company's out in Los Angeles. And who takes me to lunch and convinces me it's a no-brainer? Who tells me this is the best thing you'll ever do? The guy I'm looking at right now, Colin Cowherd. And since then, while I appreciate you calling and checking in on me about once a week, it's very nice, the constant mockery of the fact that evidently New York is a hellscape weather-wise is just, I mean, it's just never ending.
Hey.
It's never ending. When you're not text heckling me about Russell Westbrook, you're just sending me pictures of the sunset on the beach, and I don't appreciate it.
Well, enjoy the snow, and I'm just done.
Goodbye.
Second nor'easter in an hour and a half. Nick Wright, my friend, congratulations. You were great, and we appreciate you stopping by the show today.
Absolutely. Talk to you later, man.
All right. Jason Sehorn today, Juju Smith-Schuster, great young player for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Olden Paulinus, D'Angelo Hall. By the way, I saw D'Angelo Hall in the hallway, and I'm like, have you been playing in the NFL since 1981? When did he get drafted? D'Angelo Hall was so good as a rookie. It's like my theory on Andre Agassi. Andre Agassi was so good at 16. By the time he was 29, you thought he was like Walter Matthau. You're like, he's 50. Like, D'Angelo Hall looks fantastic. I'm like, 2004. So he's been in the league 14 years. I don't know how long he has. He's been banged up last couple of years. He'll join us later today. Hey, can you imagine taking a car on a 100-day test drive? Of course you can't. The last time I bought a car, I was allowed about 4 to 5 minutes of driving around Los Angeles. Then we hurried back to the dealership. For the record, it was a fine dealership, and I did buy the car. But can you imagine being given the car for 3 months? Well, that's what Casper does with their mattresses. A 100-night sleep challenge. Ships for free. In a box so small, it's hard to believe there's a mattress. You don't need movers. You sleep in it for over 3 months. And if you're not satisfied, they come and ship it out for free and give you a refund. Okay, who does that in retail? Who does that in any business? You've got to be confident in your company and your product if you do that. Try it right now. Love yours as much as I love mine. Casper.com code HERD. Casper.com code HERD. HERD, $50 off select mattresses. It's the Herd.
The planet is revealing itself. Clouds